In our last session, we opened up the discussion of how your life after loss might be reassembled into something meaningful and beautiful.
But we wonder if some of you might be concerned that your loved one may somehow fade away from your new life.
Rest assured, that's not the case. Today, we want to continue talking about what your new life after loss can be like.
Much like a re-envisioning and remodeling of a room in your house, you are now in a position to envision new elements for your life. When you redecorate a room, you're probably going to have some new elements, perhaps a different color of paint on the walls or even new flooring. But you probably will also retain other elements like pieces of furniture or cherished artwork.
And that's how you should envision your new life after loss. Certainly, there will need to be some new elements, but there should also be many places for memories of your loved one. In videos, photos, or possessions that were special to him or her. We are so glad you're here today. Welcome to Grief Share.
Although your loved one is no longer present with you in person, you still have all the memories that you cherish in your heart. The blessings you experienced in your life because of that relationship can still have a profound impact on your life. Those types of memories are actually a gift from God.
Reminiscing about your loved one is so important, and research shows that when a person engages in reminiscing and thinking about the positive memories with that person, that's going to enhance the person's well-being. That can alleviate some of that anxiety and bring comfort and bring peace.
There's a loneliness of them not being there, but it doesn't stifle me. Whereas before I may have shed a tear or just kind of withdrew, as time goes by, instead of that, I can laugh. I'm able to enjoy other relationships. I thank God for them being in my life. And I also thank God for the new memories that are being created.
I do talk to the grandchildren now, and just little things about their grandfather, that they don't know because they never knew him. And we'll talk about some experiences and what he was like. I am also very, very close to his family. So we have lots of conversations, lots of laughs, lots of memories.
The funeral home had given me a necklace embedded with his fingerprint, and I do wear that on special occasions.
I really enjoy talking about him, and I want to talk about every aspect of him. I'm comfortable if people ask me how he died, but I'm also comfortable when they ask me how we met, how we fell in love, what were his favorite things to do? What is something that makes you laugh every time you think about him? What is something that you don't miss? And those are questions that I am perfectly okay with and want people to ask me.
When the first week of December would come around, I would remember my dad more. I will go in my basement and play his album and remember, or look at pictures of him, or read his master's thesis, any of that stuff to help me in a very positive way remember him.
Something that's really helped me express my grief is something called a loss box. So I took a shoe box and decorated it, and I put letters that I write to my sister in there. I put some of my favorite pictures in there. If I have a dream about her, I'll write it down and put it in there. I like to go through the box sometimes on holidays in the morning before the holiday starts. or on the anniversary of her passing or on her birthday. That's when I pull out the box.
I often would carry a picture of Dan so that when we would have a high school graduation, we would include a photo of Dan in the picture. When Daniel graduated from the military, again, we would have Dan's photo. And for many years, our Christmas card always included a picture of Dan. It just brought us peace, and Dan was definitely part of our family, so we always wanted to include him.
In addition to reminiscing, honoring your loved one's memory might be done through activities you associate with him or her.
Every year, I take 2 roses to the place where he died, one for me and one for his son, and leave them at the house. The other thing I've done is I've adopted a child through Compassion International Ministry, and I chose a young man who shared almost Jason's name and his birthday. So I feel like supporting another young person is important as a legacy to Jason's memory.
For many, many years, we got very connected with the radiothon that was held for Duke Children's Hospital, and they still hold it today. But Sarah's story was one of those stories that got repeated year after year, over the radio, and helped to raise money for the hospital. And we had a couple of occasions to go back and to speak and to answer the phones.
When our boys were 12 and 9, we took them to Washington, D.C. for a family vacation. And we went around the National Mall and visited the museums. And at the Air and Space Museum, we saw satellites. And I realized that one of the satellites was the one that my dad had worked on. And so I shared with the kids, your grandfather designed some of the technology that helped this satellite go into orbit. A few years ago, I took my older son on a trip to Taiwan so he could visit family and to see some of the sights. And my mom toured us around, and we got to visit my dad's hometown and see the house where he grew up and the school that he was at and other things about his life in Taiwan.
My brother was a great musician. Even at 19, he had written a variety of songs, and my dad got a friend of his, a piano player, a jazz trio, and asked them to record these songs. And he did. Dad wrote lyrics for some of them, and it was a singer. And that album, it's called Reflections of Kevin. It's really a great testimony to what his life was about.
Shortly before his sudden death, Barbara and her husband Al had planned a family vacation. Barbara decided the family should still go.
When we went to Hawaii, it was really to celebrate Al. One afternoon on the beach, my son had been playing in the water, and he came out and he just took a stick and wrote this in great big letters, "Thanks, Dad." Because the kids all knew that it was his hard work that enabled us to go on this trip.
I think we have chosen to honor my mom in doing things she would have loved to do. For her birthday, we bought the cake she always liked, and we prepared it for ourselves the way she would want it. And I remember I said, well, I'm just going to celebrate the fact that she was my mom and that she was with me for so long. And I'm gonna eat her favorite cake and I'm gonna eat her favorite ice cream.
Let me give you a handful of suggestions of ways we can help children memorialize. Battery candles are wonderful. Whether it's a little votive candle that a child can have in their room to light whenever they're missing their decedent or want to send love, or a fancier big candle that the family can have in family space on the mantle, for example. And whenever anyone in the family is missing Grandpa and wants to send love, they can light the candle. So if the candle's lit, the whole family knows somebody's missing Grandpa. Somebody might need a hug. We share treasured memories in several ways. I like having a vase, like a floral bud vase, putting a little bit of water in the bottom of it, and using floral stones as a symbol of treasure. And we pass the vase around the family and share treasured memories. So I drop the stone into the vase and share a memory I treasure with the decedent. And as we do that, the water level in the vase rises. And when the water reaches the top, someone says, even though Grandpa's not here with us anymore, our memories of him fill us.
As you've considered your past, you've probably also thought about ways in which your life will now have to be different.
I think the excitement started to come after I started pursuing the future. I was hiking up a mountainside with a friend of mine, and all of a sudden I said, I can do this. I can do this. And Harold turned around and says, yeah, you're doing quite well. I said, no, I'm not talking about physically doing this. This is something I like to do. This is something that could be part of my future. I'm rediscovering who I am and what I used to do.
It's important to maintain your personhood and your own identity. You were not always married. You were not always a parent. And the only way to do that is to find whatever is comfortable with you. And you really have to push yourself.
Go to the opera once. You might discover that you like it. Eat some different food. Go to a different restaurant. A lot of those things are helpful explorations to help you redefine down the road, saying, okay, this is who I am. This is what I like to do. And here's the direction I want to go in.
You need not feel guilty about moving forward with your life, especially as you consider what your loved one would have wished for you.
He wouldn't want me to grieve and be sad and mope and, not do anything. So I feel like I'm honoring him in a way, not forgetting about him, because I'll never forget him, ever, ever. But I feel like I'm honoring him by moving on with my life and being happy with my life, with the life that I have now, because it's the life God gave me.
I learned that you should not feel guilty for feeling good again, or laughing again, or enjoying yourself again. That God would want you to. Joe would have wanted me to. And I was not being beneficial or fulfilling what God had for me.
And so in some ways, it became a way of honoring my father, to continue on, to live as best a life as I could, to live and to be a good force in the world, to love others and to love God.
What an amazing way to look at the future. To be a good force in the world, to love others, and to love God. That might sound like too much to shoot for, but it really doesn't have to be, especially as you first start out.
Perhaps you and your loved one shared similar passions, and you want to continue working with causes that excited both of you. Or maybe you've become passionate about a cause related to losing your loved one.
Pursuing any of those interests will not only be meaningful to you, but they'll also bless others. And that is an important element of healing because it taps into God's design and plan for you.
Grief is always a formative experience. We never grieve and remain the same person that we were before. Grief shapes our priorities. It sobers us up to bigger things. We ask ourselves the question, what are we going to do with this? Because it just feels too important to move on from and not do something with.
One of the centerpieces of God's character is love. God is love. The biblical definition of love, which is the thing that which Jesus said in John 13 would distinguish us as believers, is to compassionately, righteously, and responsibly seek the well-being of another. When you serve others, even in your grief, you have activated God's love for you.
When you start giving, it gives so much back to you. It is so fulfilling. It spends the energy, which helps you in your grief, but you also feel like you're doing something in honor of the person that you've lost. I am quite confident that it is one of the biggest ways we grieve well, is by serving, doing, giving, loving, with meaning and purpose.
As we move forward and embrace what is next, we're actually continuing and stewarding the legacy of all the positive benefits that this person made in our life.
As he processed his own grief, Jonathan found several ways to continue his wife's legacy of helping others.
Winter had a ministry for girls called For Girls Like You that I felt called to carry on in her honor. It was like a mission I felt like God had given her, that he had handed me the baton to continue on. She had 1,200 little girls that were getting her magazine, and so I knew I was called to carry that magazine on. By God's grace, now we have more than 5,000 little girls that subscribe to the magazine in her memory, in her honor. But the last way, which is the most personal, was with my daughters, like in our home as much as I can, reminding them of who their mom was, who she is, passing the baton from me as a former husband to them as the daughters of this incredible hero in the faith, I would call her, who their mom was, and allowing them to carry that as well, because they'll always be her daughters, and she'll always be their mom.
I would say it's important to develop your relationship with God, to know that God has you and gave you specific gifts and talents. You may be a great listener, you may be a great cook, you may have the gift of hospitality. Whatever is important to you, that's important to establish that and go for it.
Here are some other examples of grievers who set out to be a blessing to others.
I want to have a community center built in Arthur's name, and I have somebody that's willing to partner with me on it. That's something that he wanted to do before he passed, to get a community center in our area for the kids where they could go, and also have meeting rooms. That's something that I want to do in his memory.
When Carla's first husband, Scott, died, she was at a loss as to how to help her children with the loss of their dad. Becca, Carla's friend from church, was able to help her understand loss from a child's perspective, since Becca had lost her own father as a young girl.
She invited me to get together, really in an attempt to help me understand maybe how my kids were thinking, how I could care for them more effectively. And that was lovely. That certainly deepened our friendship.
As it turned out, God gave Carla the unique opportunity to comfort her friend Becca with the same comfort she had received from her earlier. Just 2 years after Carla lost her husband, Becca's own husband died suddenly.
My husband Mike was mowing the yard and just collapsed. My friend Carla knew some of the very practical things that I was going to be facing very quickly. And she knew how to step in and walk me through those things.
I became a resource that she could turn to for, details that you wouldn't otherwise necessarily know if you hadn't walked through this already.
She's just quite literally walked me through several things, very practical needs that I had shortly after Mike died, of getting financial things in order, of helping me think through what to do as far as a career, how to help my children, where to get them into school. She still helps me sometimes with carpools for my kids. She stepped up after Mike died and has very successfully supported me and just helped me through a lot of the struggles that I've had.
Carla eventually remarried and together with her second husband, Ray, began taking counseling classes to get help for their blended family. But then they realized how what they were learning could also benefit other people.
I had no aspiration at all to become a counselor. I was taking these because I needed help. But we needed help loving our children better. So he and I started taking classes and found it just profoundly helpful, really transformative to us personally. But after the first couple classes, we got just very excited at how our conversations were different. We're thinking, how can we help people have wiser conversations? And so being able to offer that in our church was very exciting to us. I'd really like to come alongside people in my own church. That's really my primary hope, to really be able to walk with people over a period of time in the context of our church community.
Carla's testimony illustrates an incredibly valuable lesson taught in Scripture.
In 2 Corinthians, it tells us that God comforts us in all our troubles so that we can comfort others. After we have taken time to heal for ourselves, we're just giving out what God has given us. We're just giving that back, and I believe that God honors that by further healing you.
After a significant loss, receiving comfort is initially like being thrown a life preserver in the middle of the ocean. This support keeps you afloat as you slowly venture forward with your life, focusing on yourself, your loss, and just trying to make it through the day. But eventually, as you continue through your grief process, receiving comfort plants seeds of healing. The valuable advice and tips from people who've gone through grief before you give you new ways to deal with your emotions and struggles. The support, acceptance, and understanding allow you to smile and find hope again. Little by little, those seeds of comfort bloom into the ability to take bigger and bigger steps forward in your healing. Eventually, receiving comfort turns into the ability to share that comfort with others who need it. As you plant seeds of healing in others, the comfort you share continues to nurture the soil of your own healing. In fact, sharing comfort with others is a vital part of your own healing process. In this way, comfort can be seen as a gift that's meant to be shared, and each time it's received and shared, it brings deeper levels of joy and healing to everyone involved. Healing isn't a destination, it's a journey of receiving comfort and sharing comfort that helps everyone who's walking the same path.
One way to share the comfort you've received is to help others learn about GriefShare. And possibly at some point in the future, you could volunteer in a GriefShare ministry yourself.
You might not want to lead a small group discussion, but there are a number of other ways you could potentially help out when you're ready. Your GriefShare ministry team can give you an idea of the different types of service in this ministry.
I had gone through GriefShare a couple of times and I felt myself recovering, feeling normal. I was just driven to try to be able to share that with others. So after that last second time through, I went up to the leader and I said, you know, if you need any help, I'm willing to help you. And she said, and she grabbed me and hugged me and said, oh, I'm so glad you said that. And so the next time I just went in as a helper.
To learn more about how you can help others experience the comfort you've received, talk to your group leader or visit griefshare.org/comfort. Are you looking for ways to rebuild your life while preserving memories of your loved one? Your participant guide has suggestions for legacy projects and ways to give back. Be sure to go through the Session 13 exercises in your participant guide this week.
We've talked a lot about changes in your life today, but we don't want you to think that these adjustments must be made right away. Remember, your grief journey is unique to your particular circumstances.
That's right. Changes will come eventually. But maybe for now, you still need some time to reflect. And although we're at the end of our time with you, we do have some suggestions for the next leg of your grief journey.
You might consider going through GriefShare again. You're likely to pick up on things you might have missed the first time you heard them. You'll also have more opportunities to forge supportive relationships with other grievers.
We also wanted to remind you about 2 GriefShare resources that can help you continue healing from the pain of your grief. First, there's Reflections, a GriefShare journal.
In many of these sessions, you've heard experts and others talk about the benefits of journaling. But if your goal is to heal deeply from your grief, research shows that simply putting raw emotions on paper isn't enough.
That's why we've created a guided journal. It offers questions that guide your writing and reflections, bringing self-discovery, stability, and hope. It also features personal quotes from GriefShare interviewees and more scripture references to help you process your grief in light of God's promises and truth.
And it's designed to help you track your growth and store your cherished memories of your loved ones.
You can order a journal for yourself at griefshare.org/journal. There you can order your own copy and even order copies for family or friends who need to begin processing their grief. In fact, gifting the journal is a great way to introduce others to GriefShare.
As this last session comes to an end, you might be thinking, I wish I could take this class again. There's so much I wasn't able to process. If that describes you, we want to invite you to enroll in the next GriefShare cycle. Many participants find that they've benefited enormously from attending a second time as they continue their grief journey. Speak to your group facilitator to secure your spot today. Finally, if you have questions about any of these resources or next steps, please speak with your GriefShare group leader.
Thank you so much for joining us for this 13-week journey. We consider it a privilege to have spent this time with you, discovering how God, the source of all comfort, can redeem our losses.
And now you're part of the GriefShare family. And it's our prayer that you will take the comfort that you've received from Him and eventually share it with others. That's His plan for all of us who receive His care. And it's the way we experience the deepest levels of healing and joy.
We've found that to be true, and we hope that you experience abundant, lasting healing and eventually joy as well. God bless you as you continue healing from your grief.